The Russian Revolution from Tsars to the Soviet Union. Welcome to today's episode. We're diving into one of the most pivotal upheavals of the 20th century, the Russian Revolution. This seismic event didn't just overthrow a monarchy, it upended the social, political, and economic order of an empire and gave rise to the world's first communist state, the Soviet Union. At the heart of this transformation was Vladimir Lenin, a revolutionary thinker, strategist, and political force whose ideas and leadership would not only reshape Russia, but alter the course of global history. But how did this happen? How did one of the most powerful and ancient monarchies in Europe collapse so quickly? What ideas inspired Lenin and the Bolsheviks to challenge the old order, and how did they manage to seize power amid chaos, war, and revolution? This is a story of empire and collapse, of ideals and power, of hope and brutality. It's about the fall of the Romanov dynasty, the chaos of World War I, the radical energy of the Bolshevik movement, and the bloody path toward the creation of the Soviet Union. Today, we'll trace how social unrest, economic despair, and political missteps combined with revolutionary ambition to ignite a movement that changed the world. Let's step into 20th century Russia and witness the moment when history turned on its head. 1. The fall of the Tsars, a dynasty in crisis for over 300 years. Russia was ruled by the Romanov dynasty, an autocratic monarchy where the Tsar held absolute power, unchallenged and unquestioned. Yet, by the early 20th century, deep cracks were appearing in this ancient system. Russia remained overwhelmingly rural and poor. Vast numbers of peasants lived in grinding poverty, while harsh working conditions plagued the growing urban working class. Social inequality was stark, and many Russians felt left behind in a rapidly modernizing world. Military defeat in the Russo-Japanese War, 1904 to 1905, exposed Russia's weaknesses on the global stage and shattered the image of an invincible empire. Then came World War I, which dealt a devastating blow. Russia suffered massive casualties and economic chaos, exacerbating food shortages and crippling the already fragile economy. Public discontent boiled over. At the center of it all was Tsar Nicholas II. His poor leadership, refusal to embrace meaningful reform, and reliance on a secret police force to suppress dissent deepened popular anger. The government appeared out of touch, rigid, and increasingly oppressive. By 1917, desperation had reached a breaking point. Food shortages, strikes, and protests engulfed major cities like Petrograd, sparking what would become known as the February Revolution. Faced with mounting pressure, Nicholas II abdicated the throne, bringing an end to over 3 centuries of Romanov rule. But the fall of the Tsar did not bring immediate peace or stability. Instead, Russia was thrust into a chaotic power struggle among moderates, radicals, and revolutionaries, all vying to shape the country's future. Lenin and the Bolshevik vision. Enter Vladimir Lenin, the fiery leader of the Bolshevik Party, a radical faction of the Russian Social Democrats committed to overthrowing capitalism and building a socialist state. Lenin's ideas were deeply influenced by Marxist theory, but he adapted them to fit Russia's unique social and political landscape. He believed that the working class, the proletariat, and the vast peasantry must unite to topple the ruling elite. Central to Lenin's strategy was the concept of a vanguard party, a tightly organized group of dedicated revolutionaries who would lead the masses and guide the revolution. For Lenin, waiting for gradual reforms was not an option. He argued that power had to be seized quickly and decisively to prevent reactionary forces from regaining control. In October 1917, Lenin and the Bolsheviks launched their bold and daring October Revolution, also called the Bolshevik Revolution, overthrowing the provisional government that had replaced the Tsar earlier that year. The Bolsheviks rallied the people with powerful slogans like peace, land, and bread. They promised to end Russia's devastating involvement in World War I, redistribute land to the peasants, and give workers control over factories. This vision struck a chord with a population exhausted by war, hunger, and inequality, setting the stage for a radical transformation of Russian society. 3. From revolution to Soviet state taking power was just the beginning. Russia soon plunged into a brutal civil war, a fierce and chaotic struggle between the Bolshevik, Reds, and a loose coalition of anti-communist forces known as the Whites. These white forces were a mix of monarchists, liberals, and other opponents of Bolshevik rule, and they received support from several foreign powers wary of the communist experiment. The country faced enormous challenges: widespread famine, economic collapse, and the destruction left by years of war. Yet despite this chaos, Lenin and his Bolshevik forces managed to prevail by 1922. With their victory secured, the Bolsheviks established the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR, a federation of socialist republics governed tightly by the Communist Party. Under Lenin's leadership, the new Soviet government nationalized industry and banks, bringing major economic sectors under state control, redistributed land from the aristocracy and large landowners to peasants, implemented centralized state control over the economy to direct resources and production, suppressed political opposition ruthlessly through the Cheka, a secret police force tasked with eliminating counter-revolutionaries and dissent, and promoted a highly centralized, authoritarian system under one-party rule, effectively ending political pluralism. The Soviet Union was born, a radical new political and economic experiment with profound implications for Russia and the world. For legacy and impact, the Russian Revolution was far more than just a dramatic shift in one nation's government. It was a global earthquake that reshaped the political landscape of the 20th century. The success of Lenin and the Bolsheviks ignited hope among oppressed peoples worldwide and inspired a wave of communist and socialist movements in countries as diverse as China, Cuba, Vietnam, and beyond. Lenin's vision was radical: to dismantle centuries of autocratic monarchy and replace it with a state built on Marxist ideals of class equality, worker control, and centralized planning. Yet the road to building this new socialist society was brutal and complex. The revolution and the ensuing civil war caused unimaginable suffering. Millions died from famine, violence, and disease. The early Soviet regime ruthlessly suppressed political opponents, journalists, and even former allies in the name of protecting the revolution. This dark side of the revolution reminds us that revolutionary change often carries a heavy human cost, where ideals meet the harsh realities of power, survival, and political control. Despite these challenges, the Soviet Union emerged as a formidable force on the world stage. Over the following decades, it developed into a superpower rivaling the United States, defining global politics through the Cold War and influencing nearly every corner of the world with its ideology and military presence. The legacy of the Russian Revolution is complex and multifaceted. It demonstrated how ideas can mobilize entire populations and rewrite history, but also how revolutions can spiral into authoritarianism and repression.